Why, I'm your Huckleberry. Hi everyone, it's Mark here again, Space Cowboy, and welcome to my latest video where, believe it or not, I'm actually going to talk about westerns. So I do feel slightly outside of my comfort zone because I've not researched the subject matter exclusively, so a lot of this will be from memory. It'll be stuff I've picked up along the way, anecdotally and stuff like that, but I thought I would start by showcasing the movies that I've got, and then in future episodes I can talk about my top 10 westerns, my top 10 actors, and my top 10 western characters, because as you can imagine, there'll be quite a bit of debate there, and certainly I'd invite that in the comments. You know, top 10s always provoke informed debate, so I look forward to that. So before I go any further, cheers Mr. Tetley. Nothing special, just your standard hobgoblin ruby, and we're now on the 37th Norwich Beer Festival back in 2014. So, as I said before, there are 1,500 westerns plus on Blu-ray, and most of these are on Blu-ray. I have started picking them up in 4K. I did think that I would reserve 4K for science fiction, but as I'm getting more into spaghetti westerns, I do appreciate the cinematography, the fact that they're shot in Italy and Spain. You get the gritty realism, the close-ups, the attention to detail. They do lend themselves, I find, to 4K. And when it comes to movies like the Dollars trilogy, The Wild Bunch, Once Upon a Time in the West, they're movies I want to see at their absolute best. And my understanding is that when they've been shot in native 35mm, they lend themselves very well to 4K transfers, if the transfer has been handled correctly. There are people who articulate this material far better than I can, but even though a number of these movies, westerns, are shot in the 1960s, they do still lend themselves to 4K when they've been shot in 35mm. So even though I figured I would just have a bookcase full of Blu-rays and have some uniformity about them, I am, unfortunately, started to dive into the world of 4K, but standard editions, because of course you can get steelbooks, you can get special editions. I was so frustrated that I waited and slept on the Dollars trilogy when that came out through Arrow. It sold out immediately. I just assumed I could walk into HMV and pick it off the shelf. Well, you couldn't, because it was released in limited number. What I can tell you is it's being released, I think, the 13th of September, so that's what, next week, 2 weeks, and I've ordered it in 4K, but in a standard edition, which to me is fine. I don't need steelbooks and special editions. I have enough of that with my Nintendo Switch Super Deluxe range. So let's dive into what I've got so far. I will go off at some tangents along the way, because it's interesting the number of actors that appear in some of these movies and other genres of movie that I like. So, for example, I'm getting into Italian crime movies. So when I watch the original Django and appreciate Franco Nero's portrayal of Django in that, I find myself watching Italian crime movies. So I look over there and I've got High Crime, Franco Nero, excellent. So I will go off at tangents. I also like disaster movies. So I think when I talk about the Magnificent Seven, Yul Brynner's role was reprised and played by George Kennedy, who's in the airport disaster movies. So there is some overlap, but let's dive in. So, interestingly, the first off the top, and I've got these in a rough alphabetical order, is Kurt Russell in 3:10 to Yuma. Why did I say Kurt Russell? It's because Kurt Russell features a lot in this movies. Oh dear me! Let's have another drink. Right, Russell Crowe, all-star action hero, as he normally is. 310 to Yuma, a brilliant movie. It is a remake on the 1957 classic, which I haven't seen. So I love westerns, as you know, and I'm happy to watch the originals and the remakes. And in fact, as much as I love Tombstone, I was pleased to go back and watch Gunfight at the OK Corral, which is in this pile. We'll get to that. But I do appreciate the originals, particularly. I have got a soft spot for movies shot in black and white. But anyway, 310 to Yuma. Certainly, when people ask me what's a good modern western, modern as in the last sort of 20 or 30 years, 310 to Yuma is the first that comes to mind. So, next up we have one of the 9 movie western collections released on a German label. Quite a few of these are on a German label, you know, because obviously you've got the age certificate movie rating there. They come in a slightly thinner Blu-ray case. There are 3 volumes to this. I've got volumes 1 and 2. I'm not sure which one this is because I've got one of them lent out. But what I appreciate about these is there's movies in here I would otherwise never have heard of, let alone seen. And some of these are in black and white. There's one in particular which stars Paul Newman, which he plays a really difficult character in there. As much as you like Paul Newman for, you know, classic movies that he's in, like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Towering Inferno. See, I'm going down that natural disaster rabbit hole now. Oh, and you know, is it? I want to say Bullet, but then I'm getting mixing up with Steve McQueen, who's also in Towering Inferno. Anyway, Paul Newman's character is quite unlikable in this movie, so yeah, it's interesting to pick these up and watch them because I wouldn't otherwise have seen them, and relatively inexpensive. I think this is £15, 9 movies. They're probably more TV movies, TV westerns, but worth a watch. What also is worth a watch is A Man Called Horse, the classic, starring Richard Harris. So it's worth mentioning now. I'm getting into spaghetti westerns, and what I understand from spaghetti westerns, they are so called because they're filmed traditionally in southern Italy and Spain. They usually have Italian directors. They will use the same group of actors, so it's become a bit comical. When I watch one, I'm like, well, I know he's the bad guy because he's always the bad guy. He's always the corrupt official. But to be fair, they do also include American actors in order to appease American and Western audiences. But what I like about spaghetti westerns is you do have that nice sort of, I don't know, cinematography, the panoramic views. They're more gritty. They're filled of anti-heroes. There's a lot of ambiguity, difficult word to say, to them. You're never quite sure who to root for. Lots of twists, lots of turns. It almost feels like they get under the fingernails of what the Wild West was all about. And it's, you know, it's quite far removed from, you know, John Wayne playing like some sheriff who's going to take on some bad guy or a posse that's been released, or they've broke out of jail and they're going to come to this town similar to Tombstone with all your wooden facades at the front of the shops with your saloon and your blacksmith. Yeah, that's not a spaghetti western, not at all. Anyway, the reason I'm talking about spaghetti westerns is because I've got the first of a little collection here, A Pistol for Ringo and The Return of Ringo. So with the Dollars trilogy, it obviously was highly successful, and in fact I knew it was called a spaghetti western and I didn't think much more than that. But beyond that, there's a whole world of movies? Of course there is. And there are several imitations like it. So, and because of the commercial success of the Dollars trilogy, you had other actors wanting to get in on that, or cast to play similar types of character. So, you know, Ringo is one such example, where he's like, you know, he never loses a duel. He'll take on anyone. You know, he's out for vengeance. He'll right the wrongs and all the rest of it. But then you've also got the complete Satana. Now, this is just brilliant. Honestly, I mean, it's almost tongue-in-cheek. So, and it says on the back here, you know, yeah, the man with no name spawned imitations. The man who wore this poncho, an authentic kind of replica Eastwood poncho. A recent pickup. It is too hot for me to be wearing at this point, but nonetheless, spawned several imitations. And with Satana, I'm trying. Who are the actors? The trouble is, they do cast the same group of actors in spaghetti westerns, but then they'll have different actors play the main character's role, and then the main character who started the role will then be available, so they'll bring him back in for the third movie or the fourth. You have that with the complete Satana, and you also have it with Lee Van Cleef's where is it? Oh well, I'm mixing these all up now. It's because it's a compilation that's not in a box set. That's why I can't lay my hands directly on it without upsetting the running order. Oh, here we are. The Sabata trilogy. So in two of these movies, again, it's Lee Van Cleef. You know, honestly, you know, he can shoot anything from anywhere. He's never going to miss. 3 movies, obviously trilogy, but in one of the movies, I think he's portrayed by Yul Brynner, which is confusing, but it's just the character. And in the complete Satana, it's, I mean, the character is a cross between, I don't know, Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name and Count Dracula. Count Dracula. Oh my God. He wears a cape. He does card tricks. Again, he can shoot any, you know, he'll ricochet shots off chandeliers and all this sort of stuff. All a bit ridiculous, all a bit tongue-in-cheek, but very watchable and very enjoyable. So what I find with spaghetti westerns is you've got that gritty realism, and then you've got this tongue-in-cheek stuff, which is quite humorous. So moving on, we have Appaloosa. So you've got it's kind of a buddy western. Viggo Mortensen of Lord of the Rings fame and Ed Harris, of course. So yeah, quite enjoyed that. A very dark film with Brad Pitt as the assassination of Jesse James. I think it's based on a true story. I think Jesse James is a character that existed, a notorious outlaw who used to hold up trains and rob people. A long film, a masterpiece, says on the front, and very dark. So not your usual Brad Pitt type of characters, but yeah, quite enjoyed that. Watched that recently. John Wayne's Big Jake. I've not seen this yet. I'm still trying to work out how to get John Wayne movies. I know there are various box sets and things like that. I've got to find which way I'm going to go with that. Am I going to collect them singly in Blu-ray? Do I get the DVD box set? Which way do I go? Speaking of dark westerns, Kurt Russell, one of my favourite actors in Bone Tomahawk, a horror western, brutal, involving cannibalism. So yes, quite a hidden gem. It says here the best western since Unforgiven. Well, yeah, Unforgiven is often touted as a modern masterpiece and a good example of a great western in the last sort of 20-30 years. Yeah, Bone Tomahawk, and as I said, 3:10 to Yuma would make that list. The next movie wouldn't make that list because it's not modern, it's not a masterpiece, it's not a classic. I haven't watched it, I will watch it. And that's Al Arcade's recommendation, Carry On Cowboy. I mean, No Yul Brynner, no Paul Newman, there's no Van Cleef, Eastwood or Charles Bronson. Instead I've got Sid James, Charles Hawtrey, Kenneth Williams and so on. I'm sure it'll be enjoyable. I do have a guilty pleasure. I do like Carry On movies. I put them on as a matinee and you just forget about them. Dances with Wolves. From one extreme to another, this is a powerful movie. And Kevin Costner would obviously have to be in that top 10 list of my top 10 favourite Western actors. I have to have some kind of rules whereby they have to be in at least 3. You can't just have someone who swans in, gets an Oscar for best performance in one movie. No, you've got to be in at least 3, and Kevin Costner certainly meets that criteria. Really thought-provoking movie, this Dances with Wolves. I did enjoy that. And I forgot to mention when I was sort of differentiating between American Westerns and spaghetti Westerns, like with Dances with Wolves, it will always, well, not always, but there'll be some controversy with older Westerns in the way in which they portray the Native Americans. They're obviously portrayed as the bad guys, scalping West, civilized Western settlers, who in essence are destined invaders. So you've got that in some of the older American Westerns. But when it comes to spaghetti Westerns, what you've got is the portrayal of poor Mexicans. Honestly, I must have watched about 25, 30 Westerns, and I do sympathise for anyone who's any Mexicans, because they are just portrayed as useless with a gun. They can't shoot for anything. They always and never win. They always lose and never win a shootout. They're always slovenly, greasy, eating chicken off a bone. The women are always, made up, slim, dancing, and all the men around them, slinging tequila, trying to shoot but can't. And it's like, wow. Talk about stereotypical. That's how they're portrayed in spaghetti westerns that I've seen. So I'm like, okay, right. Anyway, moving on. Django Unchained, Tarantino. It's okay. I've only watched it once. I will return to it at some point, but it's not a patch on the original. And I say that because some people aren't aware that the original Django is a separate movie. It's what inspired Tarantino to get into movie making. And there's a link with the Italian crime movies because it's Franco Nero. The film was banned in many countries. It's so violent. I think it came out in '68. But it is a classic. And the soundtrack is iconic. It's something else. It's rousing. It's brilliant. So I do urge anyone, if you want to see a proper old school Western that's gritty and violent, then Django is the one to watch. I haven't got it here because I've lent it out to a friend of mine. It's part of a compilation with A Bullet for the General, which I think might be an unofficial sequel to Django. There are several of those. And Keoma. Again, a similar kind of movie. It's Franco Nero up against it, taking no nonsense, as you'd expect. In the same way that Van Cleef does, Eastwood does, and certainly Charles Bronson as well. So well worth a watch. Next up, we've got The Duel. Woody Harrelson, who I would typically struggle to take seriously because I know he's in a number of comedy movies. But yes, this is again quite a dark movie, and he's very good in that. I mentioned Lee Van Cleef. We've got The Grand Duel here. I do wonder if is this the one where he's up against Franco Nero? That might be the other one. Texas Adios. Anyway, yep. Another Arrow movie release, a good spaghetti western with Van Cleef. Another one here, Eureka this time, Klaus Kinski, who again would have to be in that top 10 list. So The Grand Silence, a kind of sprawling, brooding character that he portrays in the mountain regions. I can't think exactly where. It's unusual. It's full of, I think it's full of snow. So you don't often see westerns that are, you know, in snow-capped mountains. And I'm trying not to confuse this with, where is it? Robert Redford. Yes, Jeremiah Johnson. This is the one, again, the sprawling landscape, snow-capped mountains, where he's up against it, yes, defying all the odds, and he's sort of taken on or befriends a wily trapper played by Will Geer. When I see Will Geer, I think, oh, that's Grandpa Walton. So there I am, showing my age. But yeah, two great movies, and not ones that people often talk about. So I've messed up my running order now. The Kid, Ethan Hawke. He'd probably have to be in the list as well. I love this movie. Yes, and I love it because the Ethan Hawke's character is about as close to Kurt Russell's Wyatt Earp in Tombstone as you'll get. So I'm less certain about the portrayal of... I can't. I've got to cheat now and look at it. Yeah, Billy the Kid, of course it is. I'm less certain about the Billy the Kid character, but nonetheless, Ethan Hawke, brilliant in that, so I enjoyed that. Then we have The Lawman, so Burt Lancaster. Robert Ryan, he's in a number of movies, particularly early westerns. Yes, so, and I say Robert Ryan because he's also in this classic Gunfight at the OK Corral. So an earlier version retelling of that, you know, that classic, you know, factual story. And in this, you've got Burt Lancaster, Kirk Douglas. So Kirk Douglas is playing Doc Holliday. He's your Huckleberry in this one. Plays the role very well, of course. And yeah, Robert Ryan is Ike Clanton in this movie. So Robert Ryan is another classic American actor who's often in these movies, and he's often the bad guy. So yes, two sort of classic westerns, well worth a watch. The Hateful Eight. I need to rewatch this. I just remember watching it and getting frustrated because old Wyatt Earp died. Well, it's not Wyatt Earp, it's Kurt Russell, but he's back as a cowboy and he dies. So that frustrated me. But no, I do need to watch it. The Magnificent Seven, the remake, Denzel Washington, Chris Pratt, and of course Ethan Hawke, who I've already said I do like him. Yeah, this is good. Well worth a watch. I have the originals here, of course. I hadn't seen these for years and I couldn't remember the sequels. Also familiar with Yul Brynner as the main character, but it goes back to what I said earlier. You know, Yul Brynner, I think, is in two of these, and then I think in the third one, I think he's portrayed by George Kennedy, who I know from disaster movies, Airport, and all of those. And Lee Van Cleef, I think, assumes the role in the fourth one, or it could be the other way around, third and fourth. But yeah, I did enjoy those. So yes, nice little set to have. Then we come to another John Wayne movie, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I did enjoy this, and I think I enjoyed this because I have an appreciation for Jimmy Stewart. He's got that unmistakable southern drawl. I know him from It's a Wonderful Life, an absolute festive classic. But he's in a number of westerns as well. I've got a few more here that he's in. I wouldn't have thought it, but yeah. So I did enjoy this. And of course it's John Wayne. Well, I mean, he's basically the same, I think, in any movie I've seen him in. But, you know, it's fine. Speaking of Kirk Douglas, I've got A Man Without a Star. Recently picked this up, but not watched it yet. I've just mentioned Jimmy Stewart and Robert Ryan, who's the bad guy in The Naked Spur. Again, I can see this as part of a set, and I think there's nothing nothing really in there, but I think that there's a German label that produces westerns, and they're all in this thinner Blu-ray case. So yes, I've got a few of those here, but I'm not sure if I want to be collecting all of those necessarily. Not all of them have English, so I've got to be careful there, but I did enjoy The Naked Spur. An absolute classic, Once Upon a Time in the West. I saw this for the first time this year. I don't know if I'd seen Henry Fonda in a movie before, and Charles Bronson, ashamedly, I am new to. I mentioned crime movies. I watched Death Wish for the first time this year. I was so pleased and excited to realise that there was 5 of them. It's the same when I watched Dirty Harry. Loved the first one, and then I realised there's 4 more. I mean, again, they do get a bit more daft as they move on, but I'm already buying into the franchise at this point. It's an easy watch. So Once Upon a Time in the West absolutely needs to have a 4K upgrade, so I shall be getting that at some point. The Proposition. Some people call this a hidden gem. Guy Pearce, Ray Winstone. I think he's in a couple of westerns. Oh, Winstone. Yeah, I laugh because I see him in certain movies which I won't name, highly controversial and of their time, and I see him in that. Who's the daddy? I'm the daddy, and another film I watched recently, Nil by Mouth. Ooh, Sexy Beast. I mean, I went for a phase of watching these gritty, sort of British gangster movies. Yes. And again, he's a tough guy, but quite often a bully and a nasty character. So it's strange to then see him pop up in a western. It's okay. It's not the best movie I'd seen. I'm glad I've watched it because people will say it's hidden gems. I've seen it. It was okay. Red Hill. I know what you're thinking. Is it or is it not a western? I don't know. You get these new kind of, they call them neo-westerns or whatever they are. It's okay. It's not your classic western, that's for sure. But it's one of those westerns that pops up on eBay, £1, that and Django. I get fed up. I just see the same cheap westerns listed endlessly. This is one of them. It's okay. It's a revenge movie, quite brutal, but it's not a classic western by any means. Is Rio Bravo a classic western? Probably, but I've not seen it. Not seen that one yet, but I have seen this one. Again, another John Wayne movie, The Sons of Kate Elder, John Wayne and Dean Martin, who also pops up in a few westerns recently, that last one. Again, do I take him seriously as an actor? Probably not. But, it's an easy watch. A film that needs no introduction. I was so pleased the other day. My lad spent the weekend with me. He loved playing and completed Red Dead Redemption. He'd never seen a western. And I said, I think there seems to be, what's the word? A consensus that if you're going to watch your first western, a modern western, probably ought to be Tombstone, because it's full of action, it moves at a good pace, and you can start with this and then you can get back to watching A Fistful of Dollars and stuff like that. But certainly Tombstone, he enjoyed that, and of course he was then able to make sense of why I try and quote Doc Holliday. True Grit is next. Jeff Bridges, love Jeff Bridges. I recently watched The Big Lebowski. I think I've watched that about 5 or 6 times now. I think I'm just about understanding the plot and the twists. I just love it. He's great in that, although my favourite character undoubtedly is Walter Sobchak, John Goodman. Brilliant. But yes, did enjoy True Grit. And I have seen the original. I'm not sure if I've got that here. No, it's on one of those compilations that I showed earlier. Randolph Scott, also in a good number of westerns. I've not seen this, and I don't think I've seen him in a western as yet. So I'll need to see some of those because he's going to obviously need to be in the top 10. Texas Adios. So Franco Nero again. Yes, I was getting this mixed up earlier with the Van Cleef one, but yes, again, spaghetti western, Franco Nero, takes no nonsense. Yeah, an easy watch. Villa Rides, I have watched this one, so I watched this yesterday. I did enjoy this. I mean, what threw me was seeing Yul Brynner with hair. I mean, yes, I'm used to seeing him bald, much like myself. But yes, he was good in that, as was Robert Mitchum. And I kept thinking, Robert Mitchum. Obviously, I know the name. I'm sure I've seen him in something else. And then it dawned on me, he's in El Dorado, another John Wayne movie, which I've seen. But yes, and of course, Charles Bronson is a great character in it. I did enjoy this, and again, I appreciated it for the fact it was shot in black and white. There's something quite classical about black and white movies, where there's absolutely nothing classical about this. The Warrior's Way. It's a cheap £1 charity shop find. I mean, I don't know. The fact that you've got to have from the producer of The Lord of the Rings to sell it tells me probably all I need to know. I mean, it's got Geoffrey Rush in it. I don't particularly know who the other actors in there. I'll watch it at some point, but I don't know. I've had my fingers burnt. I watched some Disney Western the other day with Johnny Depp in it. I can't remember what it was called. It was absolutely dreadful. I mean, it was so stupid. I mean, there's one scene where there's a chap on horseback and he's on he's on the roof of a building and just jumps off with the horse. Carries on riding as if nothing's happened. I mean, it's so ridiculous, so lame a movie. I was kind of pleased when the Blu-ray, it wouldn't play properly. And then it would cut 6 chapters out, at least, and the titles would come up. And I thought, that's it. That's telling me something. My 4K player's telling me, Mark, do not watch this tripe. Now, this is certainly not tripe, and that is Yul Brynner. I've just mentioned him in Westworld. Recently watched this. Yeah, a great movie. And it kind of, now here we go, raises the question, if this really existed, would I go there? Oh, I'd have to, of course I would. Oh, I'd take my own hat and poncho. Off I'd go. But Christ, if I saw Yul Brynner, I think, that'd be it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that'd be too much. I'd run a mile. I haven't seen the TV series yet, so I need to rectify that. In fact, I've not really watched many Western TV series. I absolutely love Deadwood. Ian Shane, just fantastic. A complex character, Al Swearingen. Starts off, you think, well, he's evil, but actually he's quite a good guy, really. But loved that. I still need to watch Yellowstone. See, the thing is, I start watching Yellowstone and I think, well, is this a Western? You know, it's like, well, it's a modern Western because they're driving around in pickup trucks and things like this. But, you know, I do need to persevere and watch that. And I also want to watch the spin-offs because I know, well, one of them, it's got, not Sam Neill, Sam Elliott in it. And if there was ever a stereotypical cowboy, it's Sam Elliott. Anyway, moving on, we're nearly there. Winchester 73, Jimmy Stewart and Shelley Winters. Now, again, this is on that German label. for which there's a whole subset. This hasn't got the leaflet in there, but there's quite a number of them. I really enjoyed this, and what I liked about it was it made a change to see Shelley Winters when she was younger, because I love disaster movies. So for me, I just think of the Poseidon Adventure, and then I get upset when she dies, because her character dies in it, because she always reminded me of my grandmother, to whom I was very close. And interestingly, her husband, portrayed by Jack Albertson in the Poseidon Adventure, reminded me of my grandfather, who always had a sense of adventure about him. And I make the connection there with when I used to watch Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder. So to see Jack Albertson and Shelley Winters together in the Poseidon Adventure reminds me of my grandparents. That's why I get upset when she passes on. So it was good to see her in one of her earlier roles in Winchester 73, and she was certainly quite a striking lady. Another classic, an absolute classic, The Wild Bunch. Ernest Borgnine, The Poseidon Adventure. Another little link there for you. Well, Robert Ryan again. Yeah, I think he was the bad guy. He's always the bad guy. I really enjoyed this. Yeah, again, it's one of those movies that I'll probably upgrade and pick up in 4K. Probably won't pick this up in 4K, but I did enjoy it, and that's Wyatt Earp. Kevin Costner, a great actor in lots of westerns. When I talk about my top 10, I think I might have mentioned that they've got to be in at least 3. Well, Dances with Wolves, Wyatt Earp, and Open Range. So, and of course, there's Horizon. I saw that a year or 2 ago. Bring Out episode 2. I haven't done that yet. I think number 3 is ready to go as well. I don't know what's happening, but I want to see more of that. The Sister Brothers. Yeah, this is also a good movie. Joaquin Phoenix and John C. Reilly. Then when I think of him, it reminds me of the fact I still need to watch the Laurel and Hardy movie, because I love Laurel and Hardy. Something else I got my lad into. But yes, this is a classic movie. Well, it's not really a classic. It's a great movie. They're brothers. And they just do whatever the hell they want, really. Yes. I enjoyed that. Another compilation, the Clint Eastwood collection. I'm not going to talk about that because I'm picking all those up in 4K. Now we get to the highlights. So I've got 3 volumes here. Well, not really volumes, they're separate editions from Arrow. The first is Blood Money. So what I like about these is these are spaghetti westerns. So they're going to be tales of revenge. They're going to be gritty. They're going to be full of violence. Yes, really getting into what it was like in the real Wild West. So, and I mean the titles will give you some idea. So you got $10,000 Blood Money, Vengeance Is Mine, Find a Place to Die, and Metallo Kill Him. I wonder if this is the one. One of these is really psychedelic and really bizarre. Bright colours in the background and all sorts of stuff going on. Here we go. Yes. This is a very strange movie. All quite psychedelic. You're not sure what's going on, but yes, I enjoyed those. Then we have Savage Guns. These box sets are still available. They can often be in a sale, so it's easier to pick them up a bit cheaper. This one comes with a poster and an art book. I won't go through that now. You've got Wrath of the Wind, I Want Him Dead, Four of the Apocalypse. Oh, that's a brutal film. I don't know if they're beheading people or scalping people. Yes. Yeah, yes. Lucio Fulci, who's known for Italian horror movies. So yes, yeah, I did enjoy that one. Quite, as I said, a very dark movie. These aren't Hollywood productions. You know, people are going to get killed, and lots of them. And El Puro, starring Robert Woods, who is in My Name Is Pecos, which is another classic spaghetti western that's in this. Vengeance Trails. So again, yes, I just said My Name Is Pecos. So I think he plays. What's interesting? I think he plays a Mexican. I said Mexicans are always downtrodden, put upon, taken advantage of. So he takes his vengeance in that. Bandidos. Klaus Kinski. How can we get to this point near the end of the video and I haven't mentioned Klaus Kinski yet? I mean, was there ever a more volatile actor? Person? Yes. So that's a good watch. I mean, it's worth a watch because it's got Klaus Kinski in it. And then, yes, finishing up on Franco Nero again. And George Hilton. Yes. Oh, yes, I can see him now. Yes, this is, yeah, a great film. And I think this makes the collection worth it, certainly. I remember this because you got, yeah, Franco Nero and George Hilton going at it. So, ideally, I'd provide a bit more description about these movies, but I watched them a while ago. And I usually watch one a day, so they kind of merge into one. But that's all my westerns. I've got lots more coming, and in particular on 4K. So in the future, there will be my top 10 westerns, my top 10 spaghetti westerns, top 10 actors, and top 10 characters. And that will definitely make for some interesting debate. And I dare say there'll be people, obvious people, that I miss off that list. So it's a list that, you know, will be revised in due course. Anyway, off waffled long enough. And remember, you are indeed a daisy if you do.